The interstate highway system, a connection of roads that many use to complete various tasks of their daily lives, such as commuting, visiting family, or going on trips. However, very few stop to think about how and why this major frontier came to be and the impact it had not only on individuals but on America as a whole. The interstate highway system was created under the Eisenhower administration due to poor road quality in America and the need for stronger national security because of the ongoing Cold War. A project of this scale was unprecedented for the time, as it was a frontier that very few countries had ever attempted to achieve due to its large size and high cost. It posed an even greater challenge to the US as it is such a large and geographically diverse country. In addition to this, controversy eventually arose because of how it had the potential to destroy many tightly knit communities. Despite causing large amounts of uncertainty and controversy, the interstate highway system was ultimately a frontier that modernized the US as it opened up the door for a better economy, safer and more efficient travel, strong national security, and a more advanced infrastructure to support the country.
The quality of roads in America before the interstate highways were put into place were inadequate to say the least, as most roads were unpaved and in terrible condition, and there was only one major highway in the country. There were also countless fatalities due to the bumpy and unsafe nature of the roads and the lack of safety measures they possessed. In addition to this, experts predicted that there would be a rapid increase in the amount of people driving on these roads due to a major rise in car sales. This would result in even worse road conditions and numerous more fatalities if the state of the roads didn't improve. President Eisenhower was dedicated to creating newer and safer highways, as he had past military experiences such as a convoy he took across the country in 1919 to survey the current condition of the road. He also recognized the necessity of a national highway system from his time serving in World War II, as he realized that the German Autobahn was so important for the country and that a similar system to this could benefit the US not only in transportation but also with national security. These experiences led to Eisenhower pushing for new highways that would advance America and benefit the country in the future.
Eisenhower first publicly mentioned his idea of creating a highway system that would unite the country during his State of the Union address that took place on January 7, 1954. In his speech, he listed the way that the government was going to fund it and requested the support of both Congress and the governors of the country. Eisenhower also explained to the public during his address that creating a newer and more modern highway system would help reduce the number of fatalities on highway and would help keep the people safe. Sometime after the address, he claimed that it would help improve the national security of the country, as the government feared that the current roads would not be sufficient enough to evacuate citizens of major cities in the case of a nuclear attack from the Soviet Union, as tensions between the two nations were rising because of the ongoing Cold War.
On October 7th of the same year, the Clay Committee held its first public session. This committee was headed by one of Eisenhower's most trusted advisors, Lucius D. Clay, and was created for the purpose of creating the highway system and finding the best possible way to finance the project. The committee first suggested a $50 billion program that would span over the course of 10 years. The Clay Committee's plan unfortunately failed in both houses of Congress, but it helped generate support for Eisenhower's dream and put pressure on Congress to do something about the dire need for highways. It proved to be a main catalyst for the interstate highway system passing through Congress with bipartisan support. The creation of the plan for the interstate highway system was contested highly in both houses of Congress. Most congressmen wanted a highway system, but they feared it would only put the federal government into more debt. Two senators, Albert Gore and Hale Boggs, ended up creating the financing plan that would be used to fund the project. It was financed through excess tax on gasoline, tires, and other roadside necessities. This was so the government would not go into more debt, and the cost would be paid for by those that use the highways and roads.
After a long-fought battle on Capitol Hill, the bill finally reached Eisenhower's desk. On June 29, 1956, President Eisenhower signed the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956, which officially started the process of building the interstate highway system in the United States. At the time, it was the largest public works project in U.S. history. The federal government agreed to pay 90% of the cost of the project, while the remaining 10% would be covered by state governments. The construction of the interstate highway system began in 1956 after the Federal Aid Highway Act was put into place. Overall, the construction lasted over 18 years longer than anticipated and cost the government over $535 billion, while the original plan stated that the construction would cost the government $25 billion. There were many delays through the whole process, as the government did not properly estimate the amount of supplies needed to finish construction, and the building often had to be put on hold.
In addition to these delays, there were many protests that stopped construction, as many people in the public were unhappy with the highway routes, as they would run through many cities and destroy many close-knit communities. Some people were also unhappy as they felt that these highways ran through mainly black communities, and that there was underlying racism in the planning of the construction. In major cities like New York and San Francisco, the construction was stopped due to ongoing protests, but in many other cities, protests were disregarded and the original plan was kept. These factors caused the building of the highways to be slowed down and even stopped for months at a time, but ultimately, the government succeeded in creating a safe and efficient highway system despite the pushback from members of the public. Richard Weingroff, who's the official Federal Highway Administration historian, agreed to answer the question, how much of an influence did Eisenhower have on the interstate highway system's construction during his presidency, and how involved was he after his terms?
Sometimes people call President Eisenhower the father of the interstate system, and I think that's a very valid name. He not only promoted the interstate system in 1954, 55, and 56, going far beyond what presidents usually did in promoting their initiatives. He had set up internal committees to figure out how to do it. He promoted it in Congress. When Congress couldn't figure out how to pay for it, he said, I don't care how you pay for it, just get the job done. And so when Congress finally did get it done, finally did pass the Federal Aid Highway Act, he continued to be very interested in the results. After he left office in January 1961, when he was doing interviews with historians, oral histories, reporters, he always cited the Interstate Highway Program as one of his favorite programs. So this was a program that he valued very highly as president, that he was very proud of and continued to be involved with as president, as a former president.
The interstate highway system was officially completed on October 19, 1994, 38 years after Eisenhower signed the act that started the construction. 4 years prior to the completion of the highway system, President George H.W. Bush renamed the interstate highway system to the Dwight D. Eisenhower National Interstate and Defense Highways. This was in honor of Eisenhower and the contributions and devotions he showed to creating a highway system that would better and revolutionize America for the following centuries. Because of Eisenhower's dedication, countless lives were saved due to the safety improvements. Some experts estimated that these new safety features would end up saving 4,000 lives per year. In addition to this, travel and transportation became much easier in America, which effectively united the country. For example, Eisenhower's convoy in 1919 from Washington, D.C. to San Francisco took roughly 3 months, whereas that same journey today would only take 42 hours.
Along with the impacts the highways had immediately, they also affect America today. Without these roads, our economy would likely suffer. Today, the United States has the largest economy in the world, and it has trade relations with more than 75 countries, with some of them importing food and other goods from the U.S. The interstate highways speed up this process and allows for more goods to be brought in through ports and spread out around the country in a more hasty manner. If these roads were built later on, or not at all, it is likely the world and the American people would have suffered. Many states also rely on imports from other states and countries, specifically ones that are landlocked and may not have the best agriculture industries. Today, 76% of Americans commute using the interstate highway system, and some of these people even rely on the system for their jobs, such as truckers or construction workers. If it weren't for the interstate highway system, many people wouldn't be able to do or get to their jobs, which would greatly impact the U.S. economy. Despite controversy spawning from many aspects of the interstate highway system, the project revolutionized the country in a variety of ways. The United States would suffer the consequences of not having the infrastructure and economy that it has today, and the world would ultimately be a different place. The interstate highway system was one of the biggest frontiers in American history, as it has helped our nation grow and has revolutionized the way that we think about transportation. If it weren't for Eisenhower and his willingness to cross a frontier that very few nations had crossed before, the United States would likely not be the global superpower that it is today.